They're very comfortable, yes. And if you come closer, they're padded, which is really nice. So, welcome. We are thankful you're taking some time on this beautiful afternoon that the Lord has given us. And as we gather to hear right now this master plan and the work that's gone into it, today we're blessed with various individuals that will be introduced in a moment. Let's go ahead and begin with a word of prayer. Gracious God and Father, we give you thanks and praise. You have opened your hand and you have provided for us all the days of our life with gifts of daily bread, but most importantly, the gifts of the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, our risen Lord and King. We thank you for all who serve us in this place and also all who have gone before us, those who 50 plus years ago gave of themselves to build this sanctuary, those even further in the past who gave of themselves to build the schools that our children have used. Now help us to hear this master plan, and then, Lord, prepare our hearts to give of ourselves for these facilities come from your gifts given through us. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. I hand it over to Brian Albright, the chair of the building committee of our master planning process.
Hello, welcome. Thank you all for being here. I'm Brian Albright, chair of the trustees and chair of the facilities team. So I'm just going to start off with a couple of minutes of introduction and overview, and then I'll turn it over to Kirsten Tucker to talk about some of the details. So here is our facilities team. There's myself and Brian Freeman and Greg Stennett, Tiffany Schmidt, Andy Languish, Ron Ehring, and Roger Potratz. And we were formed as part of the strategic ministry plan, specifically goals F1, 2, and 3. And so just goal F1 was to authorize the facilities team to conduct a facilities needs analysis. And so we looked at the building, talked to a bunch of people, and thought about what all needs to be done to the entire facility, not just the school. And then we want to hire a capital campaign firm to help us raise money. That'll be started here soon. And then establish a building committee, and that'll be a separate committee from the facilities team that we now have. So a little timeline. This process really started about a year ago when we did our Clarity events. So that's when we had different groups meet down in the fellowship hall, and we filled out big pieces of paper and got input on what all needs to be done, not just facilities-wise, but ministry-wise. And we took the comments that we got from there as our starting point and turned them over to the architects and went from there. In the fall of 23, SMP was finalized. In December of 23, we hired Sinclair Hilly Architects. And then in January and February, they did different focus groups with stakeholders. And then the past couple of months, they've shown drafts of their proposed master plan. We gave some feedback, and they've refined it since then. Of course, this month, we're presenting it to the congregation. Here in the very near future, we'll form a capital campaign committee, and then eventually a building committee. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, don't we already have a master plan? And the answer is yes, we do. In 2011, we formed a master plan consisting of 6 phases. Phases 1, 2, and 3 were done. We want to pave the parking lot, expand the narthex, improve the sanctuary with new lights and fire sprinklers. And then we constructed a new CDC building. Phase 4 was to construct a new gym and then replace the 29 building and then renovate church offices. But as well, oh, it went too fast. What happened? Oh, we lost some slides there. Oops, okay. So the original master plan called for the CDC to be constructed down at the south end of the parking lot, basically where the current playground is. and then the new gym would be constructed just to the south and east of there, and then the 29 building, or new 29 building, to be built just to the east of there. But for whatever reason, the CDC was not built down there at the south end of the parking lot. It was built across the street. And so that necessitated complete revision of these phases 4, 5, and 6. And so that's why we're starting a new master plan. And so now I'll turn it over to Kirsten Tucker to present our current master plan, or proposed master plan.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Kirsten Tucker, formerly Languish. I did grow up as a member of St. John, and I went to school here, was confirmed here. So long history of being part of this community, and my parents and family are still here. We also have Craig Wolgemuth here, architect at Sinclair Hilly, who also worked on phases 1 through 3 of your 2011 master plan. So he's very familiar with the building and everything that has been done so far. So I'm gonna finish Brian's last 2 slides. What's that? Oh, and Caroline, I'm so sorry. We have Caroline also with us from Sinclair Hilly, and Caroline is an architectural designer who's been helping us with the master plan. Okay, and so, before we get to the end of the presentation, I think Brian has anticipated that you will all be wondering, how much will this cost, and how will it be paid for? And the answer is we don't quite know yet. A lot of how much something costs depends on when it is built. If we do it 2 years from now, it will be a certain amount of money. If we do it 5 years from now, it probably will be more. But the construction market has changed a lot in the last few years as far as prices go. And then how will it be paid for? As he mentioned, you'll be establishing a building committee, a fundraising committee, and engaging in a capital campaign. So our process to kind of gather information about this master plan and what needs to happen next was a multi-step process. So we listened in last summer, in kind of the Think Big sessions that were held in the Fellowship Hall. And then we met with 14 different groups of faculty and staff and committees from the congregation. And I know this is small, so I will read it. Church shepherding staff, church administrative staff, Christian Nurture Board, Coordinating Council, Education Board, Facilities Committee, maintenance staff, music staff, school leadership, school teachers, school kitchen staff, the security team, the trustees, and the youth board. So we sent surveys to each of those groups to fill out questions like, what's working well about your building and what's not working well? How have you been limited in performing your job? What's gotten in the way of doing what you need to do? And we also asked them questions like, when we're done, how will you feel that this project has been successful? And so some of those answers on the board are just one team's answers of metrics that they would use to feel successful. So you might see that it's handicap accessible. We have many parts of the building that are not accessible to somebody in a wheelchair or even on crutches, or even somebody pushing a cleaning cart because they're up and down stairs. You might see when sports teams are proud to host their games instead of hoping that their games are away. When students are safe in the building, so that might be due to the stairs, or it might be a security question. Let's see, it's even a little bit small for me. I know that says a window for the school counselor. It says temperature is regulated. We heard a lot about the 29 building and the challenges that they've had about providing a good learning environment because it can get too hot and it can get too cold. We saw windows and natural light, and we've heard a lot about when the band doesn't conflict with other events or working. So we got a lot of feedback from all of these different groups. We took that feedback and we started to prioritize things. And we actually asked the groups, what do you see as the number one most important next step that needs to be taken? And there was really broad consensus that it was the 29 building. The fact that if there's a teacher with mobility issues, they've had to rearrange their entire building, or a student with mobility issues. The fact that they've got all the temperature stuff going on, the fact that it just doesn't feel safe or good to learn in, and the building's kind of fallen apart a little bit over time. So almost everyone agreed that the 29 building was the key next priority to take care of. Closely following that, we heard taking care of the band. We have a really, really excellent music program here, and people want to provide the facilities to support that excellence. So Paul isn't having to drag the instruments all around the building all the time, and also so that you're not seeing the conflicts you're having right now where if there's a funeral, if there's any other event, the band simply can't be practiced. So we heard a lot about the band's location being quite challenging, and we heard also a lot about the desire to have another gym, a gym that is accessible on level that everybody can get to it, that's bigger, that's welcoming for guests, for visitors, and that we're able to host 2 practices at once. So as long as I can remember, it's always been girls practice at one time, boys go home, boys come back, practice at another time. When I was a kid, that seemed fine. As a parent, that seems like a nightmare. So there really is a strong desire to be able to have 2 practices going at the same time, and not only just in one big gym, but in potentially 2 gyms so that we can be flexible. We can offer community events. We can have the spring musical or the spring play going on without it being a conflict or a battle with the sports activities. So there's a real desire for that as well. I would say those 3 things kind of emerged as trends across the staff and the boards. So when we got into the design part, so first we'll look kind of overall at the site. If you're looking here, north is up, and you can kind of see the sanctuary is there. Coming south, this is the 1954 portion of the school. This is the gym that you have now. There was discussion about what do we do with the 29 building. So there are 7 classrooms in there right now. And the question was, can we keep the building while we are building a replacement so that the students don't have to go in portables or be displaced for a year or so of construction? And we did look at that. We explored several options, and what we were finding was by trying to build around the 29 building, we were creating a plan that wouldn't make sense once it was done. So the circulation wouldn't be straightforward, it wouldn't be easy to navigate, and we would be creating hoops for ourselves that for the many decades ahead, the building would be less sensical than it would be if we just replaced the 29 building in one fell swoop. So the major move is to build south where the 29 building is right now, and then go all the way down to the setback along the property line. But what we were able to do is keep the drive aisle over here basically the same as it is. Now you might remember in the 2011 master plan that there was construction planned to go over here. We heard some concern from teachers and from administration that this is really how drop-off is happening, drop-off and pick-up for the school. And you're blessed in a way because it's quite a long amount of drive lane. Not every school has that much. And so people didn't want to interrupt that flow when it's actually working decently well. So we were able to preserve the drive lane. We were able to preserve the playground and the sledding hill. That came up as something that people wanted to keep. But what we are doing for the site is creating some new school entry points. So with the main bulk of the school coming to the south now, we have a main pickup and drop-off on the west at the parking lot level, so easy for pickup and drop-off, with a canopy that you'll see later. And then looking at exploring a drive lane coming off of Columbia on the east that could be used for daytime visitors. So normal traffic flow, mornings and afternoons would still use the west, but sometimes people need to come for half an hour and visit the school office or something like that. They could use an east drive here. We have plans of the lower main and future upper levels. I'm gonna zoom in. This is phase one. So phase one is focusing really on the school components, the things that we're losing by taking out the 7 classrooms that are in the 29 building, but also adding a few more classrooms beyond that to give us some flexibility for some next steps. So if we look here in the middle, this is our main floor. You can kind of see this long straight line. That's the corridor, the main corridor of the school. Here's the gym. Here is the school office. Kindergarten's up there. So what we wanted to do is extend that straight south all the way to a window terminus here so that we have a really easy to navigate school. And an administrator or somebody could stand here, kind of look up, look down, and be able to see everything. We're also creating a new school entry zone right here. So we're relocating the office to come to a new entry off the drive. We heard that the east entry right now is a little bit not seen. People aren't sure where to go. It's not visible enough. So we're creating a new office zone where visitors will come in here. They would have to go through the school office to actually get into the school portion. So we have security there. And then we have kind of a small commons gathering area with a grand stair that goes down to the west. So we have kind of a 2-story main lobby here so you can see across both ways. Then if you go farther south, you see some of the primary grade classrooms, kindergarten and such like that. Blue are classrooms, gray are support spaces. So they're not, if you looked very closely, you would see that the gray is just a box. In a master planning phase, we don't do things like lay out the toilets or the shelves or things like that. So really what we're doing is saying we're saving space for support. It's gonna be bathrooms, it's gonna be utilities, IT, storage, teacher planning, teacher workspace, things like that. So that's the function of these gray boxes, combined with something that we learned from our security team, which is that with today's school security concerns, we want to provide areas in the classroom that are not visible from the classroom door. So if we have a door here and a little bit of a walk before you get to the main corridor, main classroom area, you have a portion where students could go and shelter in the case of an emergency. So this is the main level. To the right is the upper level. So we would stack classrooms on top of classrooms here. We have an elevator. So this elevator is kind of at the pivot point between the old building and the addition so that we're able to serve the back of the stage level, but then mostly serve the school levels as needed. We've got a stair to the north and a stair to the south. And then finishing out phase one, in the basement, what we have is really kind of preparing for phase two and replacing some of the things that were taken away. So we've got a mechanical space to replace our old boiler room that does serve part of your 1954 building. So some of that will need to get rerouted. We've got bathrooms, locker rooms, and then we have a large youth room which was one of the strategic ministry plans we heard. You had kind of 4 targets, and serving the youth was one of your main targets. So it was important to put a youth space, a dedicated large youth space in phase one of this project. When we come to phase 2, the first thing we're going to want to do is, now that we've moved the kindergarten to the addition and the office to the addition, we're going to want to open that space up and create a band room. This is going to address all the concerns with having the band in the fellowship hall. We talked to the music staff, and one of their key concerns was this band room needs to be used by both the school and the church, because you have after-school activities with choirs, bells, things like that. So it needs to kind of be on the church end, closer to the church functions, but it also needs to be accessible to the school functions. So we've got the music, that could be called phase 1A even, and then we've got a classroom that gets updated here. And then what we're doing is infilling. You might have noticed that this was a little bit like an upside down L. We're infilling with a new, larger gym. So this is a gym that has an actual junior high size court, 50 by 84, which is larger than what you have now. It also has runoff space. It has space for coaches and benches, and then of course retractable bleachers, so that you're able to be flexible with the space. And you could put a curtain in, you could run 2 side-by-side practices, or you could hold youth events or do whatever you like. So we're filling it in with this nice big gym that actually has space around the court. Then we've got a gym storage here for the balls and PE equipment, and a gym office. So right now, you might not know, the gym office is up on the stage level. It's a little bit unique of a situation, so that would come down to this new gym area. We would add a new entry and kind of a commons. I consider this like the youth entry. They would be right here. Here's the youth. And so depending on how you set up the doors in the building and the access control, you could create a situation where the youth can come on Saturday and have access to their room, the gym, the bathrooms, and then maybe lock it so that they're not running around the rest of the building, but they have all of these nice amenities that they really need. So we've got the youth room there, and then we'll be able to use the locker rooms once we get the gym. On the main level, we've got a track that goes around 3 sides of the gym, so that's a little bit just for viewing, maybe very light walking. It's not really an exercise track, it's not quite that large. We've got a classroom coming in above the youth commons, and another classroom above that. Once we get to phase 3 and 4, I would say these 2 phases are a little bit interchangeable depending on how the school grows or the church grows and how your needs develop. What we're showing as phase 3 is renovation in the cafeteria. So this is the kitchen right now. There's a little garage area here that's kind of being used as a workshop. We can move that into another part of our lower level, and we can expand the kitchen. It's very tight in there right now. We can also expand the cafeteria. So one thing the teachers struggle with that I hadn't known until our work sessions was the state mandates particular windows of eating for the students. They're supposed to have 27 minutes of lunch, and it's supposed to be between like 11 and 1 p.m. every day. And so they really struggle to make sure all the classes get their allotted amount of time in the room, in and out as they need to do. So eventually we would really hope to expand the cafeteria, especially when we're looking at, in the future, adding classes to the school. Then we can take some of the old space that is the art room, we can use it for storage. We can take maybe the Centennial room, maybe use that for storage now that we have more classrooms on the main level, classrooms that are accessible and nice, where people will want to have Sunday school. I know we use the Centennial room right now for Sunday school, but maybe it would be better as storage. We could also cut through one of the old locker rooms and build in a ramp to the gym. So once this is a practice gym, it would still be really, really nice to have it be accessible, again, for students that need that, and also just for the cleaning supplies, for the ball carts, for everything. So we would take out some of the bleachers and add a ramp. And then if we're having performances there too, in the stage, it'll be easier for guests and visitors to come. And then we get to phase 4. So in phase 4, what we're doing is taking some space, first and second grade classrooms that have now moved over into the addition, and we're taking that space to create more offices for the church staff. You might know that Pastor Remfer is basically in a closet right now. They built it for him, but it has no windows and it's very closet-like. So it would be very nice to have a few more offices with windows. We did place it kind of along the edge. We could take over where they currently have their office space and create a meeting room. This would be really nice because you could have a meeting room that's accessible during daytime hours without going to the school. So we can maintain our school security. So this is on the lower level. Then on the main level, one kind of hope we heard of was a funeral or small wedding or baptism chapel. This sanctuary is beautiful, but it also holds a lot of people. And if you're a person who only has 50 people coming to your funeral, well, 50 might be a lot for a funeral, but it would feel really small in a sanctuary of this size. So eventually, the hope is that we could add a smaller chapel pushing off to the east so you can share this narthex space here. You can share the bathrooms and all the support spaces, but just have a smaller, quieter space. So when we look at this three-dimensionally, we've got kind of a model, a massing model, just to cut it up and show where everything is. So here's your sanctuary now. Phase 1 is the biggest phase by far. This is the main bulk of the school. Phase 2 is coming in here with the new gym. Phase 3 you can't really see in this view because it's downstairs to the west. And then phase 4, we've got the reno of the church office, and we've got the addition of the small chapel. And then from the west side, we've got phase 1, this big L, phase 2, gym, youth entry, couple classrooms. This would be the kind of main entry for the drive, student drop-off pickup. And then renovations, phase 4 in the future. So we've developed some renderings, and I'm going to show you the renderings, but I also want you to remember that these are not final. What we have done so far is master planning. The point of master planning is to figure out what's most important next and kind of lay it out. We're saving a space, we're blocking a space on the site, we're starting to think of the basic bones of the project. We can make a rendering and make it look very real, but when you're actually ready to do that project, you would go through the design project process like you normally do and have time to study what does it look like, what are the materials, what are the exact shapes. So this is really just to kind of give you a first blush idea of what it could be. So this would be the new school entry. So we've got our new drive line on the east. We have dedicated door, more prominence with materials and massing. We've got some steps with the grade to deal with and a ramp. And then we've got the classrooms. We want to bring some brick in. We have a little bit of the brick detailing from the 29 building to kind of tie to what is there already. And we know there's also a few pieces that might want to get integrated, such as some of the stone signage and the cornerstone that you have right now. From the west side, here's an idea of what it could be like here. So we've got a precast gym system. So this is a cost-effective way to build a big box in a very durable manner. We've got an entry with a canopy extending here. And then we've got some accent, some of this dark bronze that picks up on some of your metals that you have in the existing building. We also have some grade changes to deal with here. So we've got a lot of earth to move, but we can kind of create a nice little patio. Potentially it's outdoor learning on a patio, potentially outdoor learning out here in the lawn. There are opportunities for either. And then from the east, a view of what the new chapel could be like. So this is a small chapel. We're showing it seating about 80 people, again, looking for that smaller, more intimate feeling. We want it to tie to the existing architecture of the sanctuary. We're using the brick. We're using this distinctive trim band. We're using some of the slopes of the roof. But then we're opening up that east wall for potential stained glass windows connection from the inside to the outside. And that's the overview. Really appreciate everyone's time being here. Are there any questions? Yeah. We've looked at it a little bit. We've got Greg Stennett on our committee. He's with Hampton Construction and does some estimating. Again, a lot of it's a little too early to know. Kind of depends on a lot of decisions and the timeline. Yes? Yeah, great question. So in this case, when this chapel is built, it would require us to move the bell tower. So right now the bell tower is here. We would propose it would come probably to the other side and we would relocate the bell. I don't. I heard just this week that lumber prices are back to their 2019 levels. Now, it's really hard to predict if they're going to stay that way. Architecture and construction has been in a little bit of a lull, maybe due to interest prices right now. The interest rates are very high, so building has slowed down, and some of the costs, but not all, have come down more towards what we used to see. So it would be really nice if they stayed like that, but it's hard to predict. Yeah, that's a good question. The classrooms are about 950 square feet each, so depending on how you furnish those, be 20 to 24 students like you have now. We have talked about what would it look like to add more classrooms in the future when we get to the point of 2 sections per grade, and we've thought of some options, but it hasn't seemed that that's exactly the next step yet. The 54 building, I think they are in the 900s. In the 29 building, they're a little smaller. Some of them are closer to 750. Yeah.
I don't know if this is a you question or other staff. What happens with the kids while you're reconstructing the 29?
Yeah, they would probably need portables. So when we're looking at it, we're estimating it could be an 18-month construction period, so shut down at the end of May, begin it, sometime in May, whole entire school year through the summer, and you hope that phase 1 can be open for the next August, so that would be about a year's worth of portables. The 29 building right now has 7 rooms. One of them is a flex room, so we think if you had 3 portables and each one had 2 classrooms, that would probably be enough. Nope, CDC will stay there. Yeah. As far as I know, we like the CDC building. Yeah, I think that's one thing we heard was today in Seward, we have really great schools, and some prospective parents come and look at our facilities and they say, boy, this looks exactly the same as when I was 6, 30, 40 years ago. And so some of the prospective parents are looking at other facilities in town and saying, maybe I'll choose that. So we're hoping that with, newer, more appropriate facilities, more families would choose here. Well, great. Well, we can hang out afterwards and answer more questions as you think of them. So thank you again. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Kirsten. It's neat to see a former student who lived in these buildings for all your years, right? K to 8? Yep. Cool. And also in talking with our principal, Ms. Mertens, this academic year we have 185 children, and enrollment right now for next school year K to 8 stands at 200. 202. 202. So we praise God for that. At one time there were many more students in our current facilities, but through adaptation of spaces, those things have changed. How many of us enjoy the new lobby? That was one classroom. How many of us enjoy using bathrooms with adult height toilets? That was another classroom. How many of us appreciate having a business manager instead of a volunteer helping us manage, our budget? That's another classroom. So we had to utilize spaces to help accommodate the ministry in a variety of ways. So the CDC, we are thankful for that. Where does the funding for this come from? You're sitting on it, your wallet, okay? And the grace of God. And so thanks to Brian and your committee. Thank Kirsten, Craig, and you also have another assistant up in the balcony. Your team doing a great job. And we're going to continue walking through this and keeping it before us. As a congregation, we said that we are His for all, and we have a calling, and we have 4 targets with the various schools underneath them, and one of them is the facilities, okay? Who provided the facility that you're in right now? The generations before us. Who provided the facility for your children to go to school here, and for my kids to go to school here? The generations before us. Who will provide for the generations yet to come? I pray that's you and me together, all of us, as God's people, as we are led. So keep this in your prayers. Again, our contact person here on our lay leadership is Brian Albright and his crew. Kirsten, Craig, and Caroline, I should remember. They'll be around available. And also, the flowers are not for your taking out in the lobby, okay? And it ties together with space. I'm grateful for our Board of Elders to understand that this is not our building. This is God's gift to us to be used. So in a little while at 5 o'clock, Terry Bartholomew's family will be gathering here for viewing. We share this space tomorrow with Christ Place Church. So it's a congregation of a different confession. It is their church service. We'll be behind the scenes just blessing them with support. But they needed a large space in Seward for Terry's funeral. Terry was baptized and confirmed here, son of Dolores. So please keep them in your prayers. As you head out, if you see scraps on the floor, pick it up for me and put it in the trash, because we're not bringing custodians in between all these activities. So thanks for coming up and being here. God's peace be with all of us.